You've been taught to work harder, longer hours, more effort. But what if I told you that's the reason money keeps running from you? The wealthy don't chase money, they attract it. They know something you were never taught in school, never shown at work. A quiet secret passed down through the ages, now proven by science and results. It doesn't require hustle, it requires transformation. In the next few minutes, you'll learn how to stop working and still receive more money than ever before. Not through luck, but through law, the law of the mind, the law that never fails. They told you to grind, to wake up earlier than everyone else, push harder, stay longer, suffer more. They told you that money rewards pain, that the path to wealth is paved with exhaustion, sacrifice, and struggle. And maybe you believe them because everyone around you seemed to live by that same law. The early bird gets the worm. Hustle harder. Sleep when you're dead. But here's what they didn't tell you. The rich don't play by that rule book. In fact, most of them never did. They don't trade hours for dollars. They don't glorify effort. They use effort like a tool, not a lifestyle, because they learned something long ago that the masses were never supposed to know. Hard work alone never made anyone rich. If it did, the people who clean skyscrapers and lay bricks in the sun would be the wealthiest among us. But they're not. And that should tell you something uncomfortable, something liberating. The path to wealth isn't built by labor. It's built by leverage. Leverage of thought, leverage of belief, leverage of invisible laws that govern this universe just like gravity. There is no glory in breaking your back if your mind is asleep. No victory in effort without vision. No reward in motion that leads nowhere. The richest people in the world don't think about working harder. They think about how to multiply the value they offer with the least resistance possible. And that begins in the mind, not in the hands. You were trained to obey, not to think, to follow orders, not to design your life. That training kept you locked in a system where labor is praised, but the laborers are never free. The moment you begin to question that, truly question it, you'll feel a crack. A fracture in the lie. That's the beginning of freedom. You've been told that money is earned. It's not. It's attracted. Earned money is limited by time. Attracted money is limitless. And here's the truth. You attract what you believe you deserve. You attract who you are. That's why this journey doesn't start with a business plan. It doesn't start with a new job. It starts with a new thought, a new identity. The moment you stop working to survive and start becoming someone money is drawn to, your entire reality changes. The world bends to meet the expectations you set, whether they're low or limitless. So if you're tired, if you're burnt out, if you're sick of watching money slip through your fingers while others seem to breathe it in effortlessly, it's time to let go of the lie. Stop worshiping effort for effort's sake. Start thinking like the people who don't chase. Start becoming the person who doesn't have to. Because once you see it, once you understand the truth, you'll never work the same way again. You'll work with your mind, and the money will come by itself. Everything that exists began in thought. Every building you walk through, every system you rely on, every fortune ever built, it all started in the invisible space of the mind. Not in hands, not in hustle, in thought. That's where riches are born and where poverty is programmed. The tragedy is this: most people never learn to think. They mistake memory for imagination, reaction for reason. They believe working harder is thinking smarter, and they live their whole lives building someone else's vision while neglecting their own. You've been taught to trust what you can see, to rely on the tangible, to respect action above all else. But action without thought is chaos. Movement without vision is noise. And most labor is just noise, repetitive, exhausting, empty noise. It drains the body and leaves the mind untouched. That's why so many live tired and die broke, because they never realize that the mind, not the muscles, is the instrument of wealth. The wealthy know this. They protect their thoughts. They train them like athletes. They don't fill their minds with distractions or doubts. They fill them with images of the life they've already decided to create. They walk through their future in their imagination until it becomes more real than the present. Then, and only then, do they act. And when they do, their actions carry force because they are directed by vision. Your subconscious mind doesn't care what's true. It only cares what's repeated. That's why your dominant thoughts shape your life, because they become the blueprint your nervous system follows. If you think in terms of limitation, you'll feel fear. If you think in terms of abundance, you'll feel courage. And when your feelings shift, your behavior follows. This is not philosophy. This is law. So the question is, what are you allowing yourself to imagine? Most people imagine survival. They picture bills, traffic, late payments, stress, and then they wonder why that's all they get. They rehearse failure in their mind and call it being realistic. But the mind doesn't reward realism. It rewards repetition. If you repeat failure long enough, it becomes familiar. And what's familiar feels safe even if it's miserable. The moment you choose to think differently, your life begins to change, even if nothing around you has changed yet. That's the secret. The outside world responds to the world you've built within. So build it with care, build it with faith, build it with clarity. Because every empire, every invention, every legacy ever created began with someone who dared to think when everyone else was too busy doing. The masses labor without thinking. The few think and let the labor work for them. Don't wait for proof before you believe. Believe first, and the proof will find you. Train your mind to think in pictures of wealth, of freedom, of purpose, and the world will rearrange to match your vision. Because riches are not earned in sweat, they're summoned in silence, and that silence begins in thought. There is a law operating beneath the surface of your life, quiet, consistent, and absolute. It doesn't care about your background, your job, or your education. It doesn't reward effort blindly. It responds only to belief. And if you don't know it's there, you'll spend your whole life exhausted, confused why your hard work isn't translating into wealth. You'll sweat, you'll sacrifice, you'll strive, and still struggle. Because money doesn't follow sweat, it follows belief. Look around. The wealthiest people aren't always the smartest. They're not always the most experienced. But they all have one thing in common. They believe without question that they deserve to be rich. And because they believe it, the world moves to match it. It's not magic, it's alignment. Their inner world dictates their outer reality. Most people do the opposite. They believe in struggle. They believe in limits. They say things like, that's too expensive. I can't afford that. People like me don't get rich. And their subconscious listens. It treats every statement as an instruction. So it builds a life that reflects those limits perfectly. Not because they're true, but because they're believed. You're not poor because of the hours you work. You're poor because of the instructions you've given your mind. If you believe money is hard to get, it will be. If you believe you must suffer to earn it, you will. If you believe you're not worthy of it, it will avoid you like a ghost. But the moment you flip the script, when you believe, truly believe that money is drawn to you through value, vision, and inner certainty, it starts to show up. Sometimes gradually, sometimes all at once, but always in response to belief. This law doesn't require you to understand it. It doesn't even need your permission. It simply reflects what's held within. That's why the same person can make $30,000 a year for 10 years straight, and then suddenly, after a shift in identity, earn six figures with less effort. The work didn't change. The belief did. You see, belief isn't passive. It's not wishing or hoping. It's a decision, a contract with the unseen. And once signed, it becomes law in your life, not because you forced it, but because you finally aligned with it. If you want to change your money situation, stop looking at your job and start looking at your beliefs. What do you expect? What do you think is possible? What have you accepted as just the way it is? That's your ceiling, not your bank account, not your salary, your belief. The rich aren't lucky. They're certain. They're certain that money belongs in their life, that wealth is natural, that abundance is normal. And because they carry that certainty like a vibration, money responds accordingly. You don't get rich by chasing money. You get rich by embodying beliefs so strongly that money chases you. This is the law. It's invisible, yes, but it's the only law that never fails. A job is a placeholder. It fills time, not destiny. It gives you tasks, not direction. And yet most people cling to it like a lifeline, believing that as long as they keep showing up, wealth will eventually appear. But deep down, they feel the hollowness, the repetition, the growing fatigue of motion without meaning, because a job without purpose is a slow death. It keeps your hands busy while your soul starves. You don't need a job, you need a purpose, a reason to move, a vision that pulls you from the inside so powerfully that effort becomes effortless. Purpose doesn't feel like labor, it feels like truth. And when you find it, you don't have to push anymore. Life begins to pull. Think about the people who built empires, who left legacies, who changed industries. They weren't clocking in. They weren't counting hours. They were chasing something bigger than a paycheck. They were driven by vision. That's the difference. A job makes you show up. Purpose makes you unstoppable. The world has tricked you into thinking safety is found in employment. But safety in the wrong system is slavery. It's giving your energy away to build someone else's dream while yours collects dust. That's why so many people feel drained even after doing everything right, because they're working for survival, not for meaning. And survival has no finish line, it just repeats. Purpose ends the cycle. Purpose gives your energy a target. It makes your actions sacred. When you know what you're here to do, you begin to say no to what doesn't align. You stop working for approval and start building from within. And that shift, internal, invisible, is the birthplace of wealth. Not just financial wealth, but emotional freedom, spiritual clarity, and mental peace. A goal backed by burning desire is more powerful than any degree or resume. It gives shape to your days and structure to your thoughts. It transforms confusion into confidence. And here's the secret most never hear. The clearer your purpose, the less effort you need, because clarity creates speed. And in that clarity, you start to attract the people, the tools, the resources that were invisible before. The man who knows his purpose can outlast 100 who simply want to get paid. Because purpose fuels persistence, and persistence is the soil where riches grow. If you don't know your purpose yet, don't panic. Start with desire. What would you do if no one paid you but you'd still feel fulfilled? What problem would you solve? What contribution would light you up from the inside? Find that, follow that, and watch how quickly life rearranges. You weren't born to work jobs. You were born to deliver something only you can bring. A job pays the bills, but purpose builds the life. And once you find that, you'll stop asking how much you can earn and start asking how far you can go. Because the truth is simple. Money follows clarity, and clarity begins with purpose. Desire is the beginning of all achievement. Not mild hope, not wishful thinking, but a burning, obsessive desire that consumes the heart and directs the mind. It is the quiet force behind every fortune, every breakthrough, every name the world remembers. Without it, no plan matters. With it, even the impossible begins to move, because wealth does not respond to effort. It responds to intensity. And desire is the fire that ignites the invisible machinery of the universe. Most people want more money, but their desire is casual, passive. They wish for wealth while preparing for lack. They say they want abundance, but their actions whisper doubt. They fear judgment, failure, discomfort, and in doing so, they dilute the very energy that would change their life. Desire cannot be soft. It cannot be shy. It must become your identity. It must override your excuses. When you truly desire wealth, you stop asking, how long will it take? And start asking, how far can I go? This is why two people can work the same job, read the same books, have the same opportunities, yet only one becomes rich. The difference isn't knowledge, it's fire. The wealthy don't just wish for more, they demand it from life, with conviction, with clarity, with an unbreakable will. Their desire becomes a lens through which they see everything. It sharpens their decisions. It removes distractions. It makes them magnetic. Desire is not random emotion. It is a tool, a force, a signal to your subconscious that something must happen. And when that signal is strong enough, the mind goes to work. Not just yours, but the minds of others. Doors open, people appear, resources emerge, not because of magic, but because your focus makes you alert and your intensity makes you impossible to ignore. But desire alone is not enough. It must be backed by faith. You must believe that what you desire is already yours, waiting in the unseen, waiting to be claimed. This belief fuels persistence. It keeps the flame alive when nothing seems to move, and that is the test. Most people quit not because they didn't want it, but because they didn't want it bad enough. So look at your life. Your current financial reality is the echo of your past desires. If they were weak, so are your results. If they were clear, unwavering, and fed daily with thought and emotion, then you're already on the path. The question isn't whether you want more. The question is whether your desire is strong enough to reshape your identity, to override your fear, to burn through the opinions of others. Because that's what it takes. Not more talent, not more hours, just more intensity, more hunger, the kind that wakes you up in the morning with purpose and keeps you awake at night with vision. When you reach that level, wealth is no longer a dream. It becomes your direction, your expectation, your destiny. And it all starts with one thing: a desire so strong, even reality has no choice but to surrender. Work without belief is a prison. It keeps you busy, but it leads you nowhere. It fills your days, but empties your soul. You wake up, you push through, you collapse, and still you remain in the same place, wondering why nothing is changing. That's because effort alone is not enough. Action without belief is noise. It looks like progress, but it's motion in circles. The real transformation begins when belief takes the lead, because belief is the magnet, and work is just the tool it uses. Most people invert the formula. They think if they work long enough, they'll eventually start to believe in themselves. They wait for proof, for validation, for the numbers to go up before they raise their expectations. But the mind doesn't operate that way. Belief must come first, because belief doesn't follow results. Results follow belief. Every great achievement began with someone who believed in something the world hadn't seen yet. Their work mattered because it was powered by conviction. They weren't guessing. They weren't hoping. They knew. And that knowing gave their actions weight. When belief and action align, the world bends. Not instantly, but inevitably. Without belief, work is heavy. It drains. It frustrates. You find yourself doing more and earning less, repeating effort with no reward. That's because the energy behind the work is fear. Fear of not being enough, fear of failure, fear of being stuck. Fear has no creative power. It only maintains the status quo. It reinforces the prison walls. But belief, true belief, liberates. It lifts your actions with purpose. You move with clarity. You see beyond your circumstances. And in that state, your work becomes something else entirely. It becomes leverage. Every word you speak, every move you make carries multiplied force because it's being pulled by an internal magnet. That magnet is your certainty. The people who rise fast, who seem to get lucky, aren't just talented, they're convinced. And the universe responds to conviction. It opens doors that stay closed to the hesitant. It favors those who have already decided that success is non-negotiable. So what do you believe? Not what do you say, but what do you truly expect? Because your actions are revealing it every day. If you believe money is scarce, your behavior will prove it. If you believe success is for others, your results will echo that. But if you believe without hesitation that wealth is your natural state, your mind will begin finding ways to make it so. Work is not your enemy, it's your servant, but only when it's led by belief. So stop laboring from fear, stop pushing from doubt. Build the foundation first, internally. Decide who you are, decide what you deserve, and let that belief drive everything you do. Because belief is the magnet, work is the tool, and when you get them in the right order, life becomes lighter and success becomes inevitable. You've been taught to work with your hands, to build, to labor, to produce something you can see. But the truth is your hands are just extensions. The real power sits quietly behind your eyes. It doesn't lift, it doesn't sweat, it thinks, it imagines, it believes. Your mind is the engine, and if that engine runs on fear, doubt, or limitation, no amount of handwork will get you far. You'll spin your wheels, grind through the hours, and wonder why wealth stays out of reach. Because wealth doesn't begin with effort. It begins with mental alignment. Your subconscious mind is your silent partner. It accepts every thought you repeat, every belief you hold, and turns it into habit, into reality. It does not argue. It does not judge. It simply obeys. If you feed it fear, it gives you limitation. If you feed it confidence, it gives you courage. If you plant scarcity, it will deliver struggle. But if you plant abundance and nurture it daily, it will build the internal structure to receive that wealth. That's the great misunderstanding of effort. You can work 20-hour days. You can hustle harder than anyone in the room. But if your subconscious still believes you are meant to be broke, if it believes wealth is unsafe or unreachable, it will quietly sabotage every breakthrough. You'll miss the opportunity. You'll delay the decision. You'll undercharge, overthink, retreat, not because you're weak, but because your engine was never reprogrammed. This is why the rich get richer, not because of what they do, but because of how they think. Their minds are conditioned to expect wealth. They've made abundance feel familiar. And when the subconscious feels safe with wealth, it does not resist it. It attracts it automatically, consistently. You can't outperform your programming. You can only upgrade it. So how do you do that? By feeding the mind new images, new thoughts, new affirmations every single day. Repetition is the key. You must become obsessive about the life you want, not in fantasy, but in emotional rehearsal. Close your eyes and see the life already lived. Feel the wealth already yours. Speak it, write it, declare it, until your subconscious accepts it as truth. Then, and only then, do your hands matter. Because now every action you take flows from a place of inner alignment. You stop working randomly. You start moving intentionally. You say no to distractions, yes to vision. The same hours now create 10 times the result because they're being powered by belief, not fear. The hands may build the house, but the mind designs the blueprint. And if your mind is poor, your labor will build a prison, not a palace. But if your mind is rich, clear, focused, programmed for abundance, your actions will carry power. They will create, they will attract. So stop worshiping effort. Start directing the engine, because until the mind is right, the hands will always be tired. You don't get what you want, you get what you are. And what you are is determined by the thoughts you allow to repeat. The mind is not moved by occasional inspiration. It's moved by persistent instruction. That's why the rich don't just work. They program every day, every morning, every night. They don't leave their mindset to chance. They use the power of autosuggestion to mold the invisible blueprint that money follows. Autosuggestion is not some mystical concept. It is the deliberate repetition of words backed by emotion, aimed at rewriting the beliefs that drive your behavior. It's how you override the old script, the one that told you money is evil, that you're not good enough, that success is for others. Because that script didn't come from truth. It came from repetition, from years of hearing what you can't do, shouldn't want, will never have. But here's the power you've had all along. If repetition created the limitations, repetition can destroy them and rebuild something greater. The subconscious mind does not understand jokes. It doesn't know fiction from fact. It only understands what is repeated with emotion. That's why you can say, I want to be rich 1,000 times and nothing changes, because you don't feel it. But if you close your eyes, breathe deep, and see yourself living the life, if you speak the words with certainty, intensity, and belief, something shifts. That's when the subconscious begins to listen. Write your goal. Speak it aloud every day, not as a question, not as a wish, but as a command. I am receiving wealth daily. I am attracting opportunity. I am ready for abundance. Say it like you mean it. Say it like your future depends on it, because it does. This is how the inner conditions for wealth are built. Slowly, daily, like drops of water that carve stone. You will not feel it at first, but one day you'll react differently. You'll walk into a room and feel worthy. You'll make a decision and feel peace. You'll speak a price and feel no hesitation. And that's when the outer world begins to reflect the new program. The poor talk about the news. The rich talk to themselves with purpose. They don't wake up and hope to feel powerful. They become powerful by repeating what they've chosen to believe. They understand the mind is always listening, and they never speak against their own success. Autosuggestion is not just a tool. It is the foundation of transformation. You will never rise above the identity your mind accepts as true. And the only way to change that identity is to tell it a new story again and again until the old one breaks. This is the work, not labor, not grind, repetition and emotion every day, until wealth feels normal, until success feels familiar, until your subconscious becomes your ally and money flows to meet the new signal you've chosen to send. Because once the mind is programmed, the rest is automatic. The clock was never your master until someone convinced you it was. They told you to trade your time for money, show up, sit down, do the task, wait for the check. And so you did. You measured your life in hours, your value in wages, your worth in how long you could endure someone else's agenda. But the wealthy, the ones who broke free, they never saw time as currency. They understood something far more powerful. Money doesn't follow time. It follows value. You've been taught to work harder, longer, faster, but you can never win that race because time is limited. Value is not. Time can only stretch so far. Value can scale endlessly. When you stop thinking in hours and start thinking in solutions, everything changes. Because money chases the person who solves the biggest problems, not the one who stays at their desk the longest. The man who earns a fortune didn't do it by working more hours. He did it by finding a problem that mattered and solving it in a way no one else could. He became valuable, irreplaceable. And in a world that rewards solutions, that's the only currency that counts. If you want to earn more, stop asking how you can work more. Start asking how you can serve more. How can you make life easier, faster, clearer for someone else? What can you create, improve, simplify, or deliver that saves time, increases results, or removes pain for another person? That's where money flows. That's where opportunity lives. When you trade time, you create a ceiling. There are only so many hours in the day. But when you create value, you remove the ceiling. You create leverage. A book you write once pays you forever. A solution you build today feeds you for decades. A brand you create becomes your silent salesman. That's wealth. Not because it came fast, but because it's not tied to your presence. Your goal is not to be busy. It's to be useful. And usefulness isn't measured in time, it's measured in impact. You can spend 10 hours moving papers and earn nothing. Or you can spend 10 minutes solving the right problem and earn more than most people see in a month. It all comes down to how you think. You were not born to be an employee of the clock. You were born to be a creator of value. Stop giving away your hours. Start investing in your mind. Learn something new. Build something real. Solve something painful. And when you do, you'll see something strange begin to happen. Money will come looking for you, not because you chased it, but because you became someone it couldn't ignore. This is the shift. From time to value, from waiting to creating, from scarcity to abundance. And once you see it, you'll never go back, because you'll realize the truth. You were never paid for your time. You were paid for how much you mattered. And now it's time to matter more. The rich don't wake up thinking about their next paycheck. They're not worried about clocking in, asking for raises, or scraping for overtime, because they understand something most never do. Money is not something you work for. It's something you attract, not through hustle alone, but through alignment, through mindset, through magnetism. And once you understand this, you'll see why effort without intention is just exhaustion in disguise. We've been conditioned to believe that money only comes through struggle, that you have to grind every day just to stay afloat. But that belief keeps you locked in survival mode, and survival mode never leads to wealth. It keeps your head down and your vision small. It keeps you busy instead of powerful. But attraction, real focused attraction, starts with how you see yourself, who you believe you are, what you believe you're worth. The rich believe they are worthy of wealth. Not someday, not maybe, now. They expect money to come, not because they're entitled, but because they're aligned. They have created an internal environment that makes abundance feel natural. And that internal state shapes their decisions, their energy, their confidence. That's what draws money in, not just what they do, but who they've become. Most people try to earn money through force. They chase, they beg, they stress. But attraction doesn't respond to force. It responds to frequency, to belief, to clarity. When your mind is calm and your vision is locked in, you start making choices from abundance, not desperation. And those choices carry a different energy. People feel it. Opportunities respond to it. The right doors begin to open, not because you pushed harder, but because you finally tuned in to the right signal. Money is a byproduct of value. But value is a byproduct of identity, and your identity is shaped by what you consistently believe. That's why some people seem to make money effortlessly. It's not luck, it's inner certainty. They're not grinding harder, they're allowing more. They've built a life where wealth flows in, not because they chase it, but because they're ready for it. This doesn't mean you sit back and do nothing. Action is still required, but the energy behind your action matters. If you act from fear, you repel what you want. If you act from faith, you attract it. The same task, done from a different mindset, creates a completely different outcome. So ask yourself, are you trying to earn money, or are you becoming someone who attracts it? Are you moving from scarcity or from abundance? Because that choice, invisible as it may seem, determines everything. When you shift from chasing to attracting, life feels lighter. your results multiply. Your influence expands. Not because you're working harder, but because your energy has changed. And that shift in energy is the real secret the rich live by. They don't chase money. They become the reason money moves. You will never earn more than you expect, not truly, not consistently, because what you expect you create, not through force, but through alignment, through subconscious decisions that quietly match your internal beliefs. This is the hidden law no one talks about, the law of the financial thermostat. Everyone has one, and unless you change it, your income will rise and fall to stay in harmony with what you believe you deserve. You've seen it before. The person who wins big, only to lose it all. The business that explodes overnight, then crashes. The promotion that leads nowhere. It's not bad luck. It's the thermostat snapping the environment back to its set point. If your mind is set for survival, you will find a way to survive. If it's set for struggle, you will sabotage ease. But if it's set for wealth, real, lasting, natural wealth, you'll rise to meet it. Not just once, but again and again. This thermostat is invisible. It doesn't show up in your bank app. It shows up in your habits, your words, your daily choices. It decides whether you say yes to the opportunity or retreat, whether you charge what you're worth or shrink in fear, whether you invest or delay. You can't outperform your thermostat. You can only reset it. The problem is most people set theirs without realizing it. It was programmed by their environment, by what their parents earned, by what their teachers said was possible, by what society says is realistic. And so they unconsciously limit themselves, not because of lack of skill, but because of low expectations. But here's the truth. Your financial reality is not fixed. It's flexible. And the lever that controls it is expectation. Raise your standard and your behavior changes. Change your behavior and your results follow. Not because you tried harder, but because your mind stopped protecting you from what it used to fear. This is why affirmations matter, why vision matters. Why you must speak wealth into your life daily, not as a fantasy, but as a declaration. Not someday, not if I'm lucky, but now with certainty, because your subconscious is always listening. And when you raise your expectations, you give it new instructions. You give it permission to find new paths. You activate different filters. You stop rejecting the abundance that's been waiting for you. If you expect little, you receive little. Not because of the world, but because of your identity. But if you expect wealth, not from arrogance, but from alignment, you begin to attract it in ways that feel natural, even effortless. Because now your thoughts, your energy, and your actions are all moving in the same direction. So check the thermostat, not your income, the identity that created it. Who are you being? What are you expecting? What level of abundance feels normal to you? Because until wealth feels like home, you'll always find a way back to struggle. But once you expect more, deeply, consistently, unapologetically, everything in your life will rise to meet it. And you'll realize it was never about what you could earn. It was always about what you believed you were meant for. Work isn't the problem. It never was. Work builds nations, solves problems, feeds families, and births dreams. But work without alignment, work disconnected from vision, from purpose, from meaning, that kind of work becomes poison. It wears down the body and breaks the spirit. It turns days into cycles, weeks into blur, and years into regret. Not because you worked too much, but because you worked for the wrong thing. You've been told to hustle harder, to push through, to grind. But effort alone is not noble. Sweat without direction is suffering in disguise. The truth is, it's not the hours that hurt you. It's the emptiness behind them. Misaligned work is what drains you. It's what makes Monday feel heavy and success feel distant. Because no matter how hard you try, something inside you knows it's not your path. But when effort aligns with purpose, everything changes. When your work serves your vision, when your actions reflect your values, when your daily movement points to something bigger than a paycheck, suddenly energy rises instead of falls. You wake up with clarity. You move with force. You recover faster, think sharper, attract more. Not because the work got easier, but because it finally started making sense. Alignment turns work into leverage. It multiplies results. It eliminates resistance. You no longer have to push yourself just to begin. You're pulled by something internal, a reason, a mission, a voice that says, "This matters, keep going." You've seen it. The artist who loses track of time, the entrepreneur who builds through the night with fire in their chest, the teacher who stays late, not because they have to, but because they care. That's what aligned work looks like. It transcends the calendar. It turns labor into legacy. So don't reject work. Reject the lie that you must suffer to succeed. Reject the idea that your only worth is in hours traded. Instead, look deeper. What would your life look like if everything you did was aimed at something meaningful? What if your work wasn't just about getting through the day, but creating the future? This is where exponential results are born, not in doing more, but in doing what matters. The world rewards precision, clarity, purpose-driven action, because aligned work creates momentum. Momentum attracts people. People bring opportunities, and opportunities unlock everything. You were never meant to live burned out, bitter, and buried under tasks that don't matter. You were built to create, to contribute, to leave a mark, and the only thing standing in your way is the lie that work and purpose can't exist in the same place, but they can. And when they do, you stop measuring your worth in effort and start measuring it in impact. So realign, reconnect, rebuild your work around your why. Because when purpose fuels your effort, results become inevitable, and work becomes a form of freedom. Chasing is the language of lack. It screams, "I don't have it." It puts you in a race where you're always behind. Every step fueled by desperation. Every move guided by fear. The more you chase, the more you affirm to yourself that what you want is separate from you, distant, unreachable, reserved for someone else. And that energy repels what you seek. Creators don't chase. They build quietly, intentionally, relentlessly. They understand that wealth is not hunted, it's attracted. And attraction doesn't begin with movement. It begins with alignment. It begins with becoming. The world does not reward those who scream the loudest or run the fastest. It rewards those who offer something real, something useful, something needed. The act of creation, whether it's a product, a service, a solution, or a story, it pulls wealth toward the creator like a magnet. Not because they begged for it, but because they gave something that mattered. Look around. The people who earn the most are not the ones running after every trend or deal. They're the ones who planted their flag, built their system, created something that solved a problem, something that multiplied value, and now they receive wealth even while they sleep. Not because they're lucky, but because they stopped chasing and started creating. Creation flips the power dynamic. It says, "I am the source." It rewires your brain from "please give me" to "I offer this." That shift is everything. Because when you become the source of value, you no longer depend on permission. You don't beg for approval. You don't wait. You initiate. You shape the market instead of reacting to it. You lead instead of follow. Chasers burn out. They run from opportunity to opportunity, hoping the next thing will finally work. But creators build slow power. They build equity, reputation, trust. And those things compound, they stack in silence, and then, seemingly all at once, the world starts to notice. And here's the paradox. The less you chase, the more you attract, because you're no longer communicating lack. You're communicating power, confidence, certainty. You're not looking for validation. You've already validated yourself through the work, through the offering, through the thing you built. So ask yourself, are you chasing or are you creating? Are you running after money or are you becoming someone it seeks? Are you moving from fear or building from faith? Every moment you choose to create, you raise your value. Every time you give form to an idea, a solution, a product, a message, you expand your reach. And wealth, true wealth, always flows toward the source. It finds the ones who create because they are no longer trying to take, they're here to give. And in this universe, value given returns multiplied. So stop chasing what you want. Start creating what the world can't ignore. And you'll never have to run again. You don't get paid for what you do. You get paid for who you are while you're doing it. That's the truth no one tells you. Because your identity, your self-image, is the silent force that determines how much you allow yourself to receive. Not what you wish for, not what you dream about, what you believe you already are. You don't attract money from the outside. You receive it because your mind has already claimed it on the inside. Acting as if the money is already yours isn't pretending. It's alignment. It's not about lying to yourself. It's about becoming yourself. The wealthier version of you already exists. The confident, decisive, powerful version of you who speaks with authority, walks with certainty, and expects abundance. That version isn't a fantasy, it's a frequency. And the moment you tune into it, life begins to change. Most people wait. They wait for proof before they believe. They wait for the bank account to grow before they feel confident. They wait for validation before they move like they matter. And in that waiting, they tell the world they're not ready. They show up small. They discount themselves. They shrink. And so money stays away, not because it's cruel, but because it responds to clarity. You receive what you believe you are. You can't fake energy. If you believe you're barely scraping by, that energy leaks into every word, every offer, every move you make. But if you believe you are already abundant, if you move through the day with that expectation, money begins to organize itself around that belief. You start to see new doors. You start to make new decisions. You say no to what you used to tolerate. And those micro shifts create macro results. You must feel rich before the world agrees. You must walk into every room like you belong there. You must carry yourself as someone who has already received the thing they once chased. Because when you act from that place, not with arrogance, but with quiet certainty, you become a match for the life you want. Identity is everything. It shapes how you speak, what you expect, how you handle opportunity. And identity isn't built by accident, it's built by repetition. Every day you reinforce who you are with your thoughts, with your language, with the way you carry yourself when no one's watching. So start today. Act as if the money is already yours, not by spending recklessly, but by thinking powerfully, by walking in alignment with the version of you that doesn't wonder if, it expects. Because when your identity shifts, your energy shifts. And when your energy shifts, your reality follows. You don't receive wealth because you need it. You receive it because you've already become someone who holds it with ease. And once the mind accepts that identity, the world has no choice but to catch up. The world is loud, always pushing, always shouting, always demanding more of you, more effort, more movement, more answers. But wealth doesn't come from noise. It comes from silence. It comes from the still, quiet moments where you stop chasing and start listening. Because in that silence, something sacred is revealed. Your blueprint, the truth about who you are, what you're here to give, and how you're meant to receive. Every person has a wealth code, a specific combination of vision, value, and energy that, once activated, makes money flow naturally. But you'll never hear it if your mind is always filled with distraction. You won't find it while scrolling endlessly, reacting constantly, or drowning in other people's voices. Your wealth doesn't live out there. It lives inside you. And to access it, you must first become still. Stillness isn't laziness, it's power, it's discipline. It's the deliberate act of pausing the outer world so you can reconnect with the inner one. Because in that space, clarity returns. You begin to hear your own thoughts, not the thoughts of society or your past or your fears, yours. And from that space, new ideas begin to rise, not random thoughts, but direction, vision, instruction. Think about it. Every breakthrough, every invention, every life-altering decision began in silence. A moment where someone stepped away, closed their eyes, and heard the whisper of something deeper. The wealth code doesn't scream. It waits patiently for the noise to fade. You've been programmed since childhood with ideas about money, what's possible, what's appropriate, what you're allowed to have, and most of those ideas didn't come from truth. They came from repetition, from fear, from limitation. To rewrite them, you must disconnect long enough to question them. In the silence, you'll see the patterns, the self-sabotage, the low standards, the moments you said yes when you should have said no. You'll see how often you've betrayed your own value in the name of being practical or accepted, but don't fear what you uncover. Welcome it, because once seen, it can be changed. Then something incredible happens. You begin to imagine again. You begin to dream, not like a child, but like a creator. You start to feel the reality of the life that's waiting for you, not someday, now. You begin to move not out of panic, but from peace. Every action becomes clearer. Every decision feels lighter. The world may still be loud, but you found something stronger inside. Silence sharpens you. Stillness tunes you. And through them, your wealth code begins to emerge. A blueprint designed not by force, but by alignment. And when you act from that place, when your external life reflects your internal truth, money no longer becomes the goal. It becomes the side effect. So stop, disconnect, listen. The noise can wait. Your future can't. Because in the quiet, you remember you were never lost. You were just too loud to hear the answer. We've been taught that more equals more effort, more hours, more sacrifice. But the truth is, most people aren't getting ahead because they're doing too little. They're doing too much of the wrong thing. They confuse activity with progress, movement with meaning. And in the process, they exhaust themselves chasing outcomes that would come faster if they simply stopped, thought, and chose with precision. Do less, receive more. Not by being lazy, but by thinking more clearly. The wealthiest people aren't busy. They're focused. They don't fill their schedules. They protect them. They spend time thinking strategically, acting decisively, and saying no to 99% of the noise that screams for their attention, because they understand a secret the world resists. Hours do not create wealth. Clarity does. The clearer your mind, the fewer moves you need to make. The sharper your intention, the fewer mistakes you make. It's not about how much you can force, it's about how well you can see. And seeing clearly comes from slowing down, not speeding up. Think about the last time you solved a problem in an instant, after days or weeks of stress. The answer didn't come from working harder. It came from a shift in awareness, a new perspective, a better question. That's what clarity does. It unlocks results without requiring more hours. Because once the decision is right, the effort becomes light. Most people are addicted to motion. They stay busy because they fear being still. They overcommit. They chase every opportunity. They say yes to every request. And in doing so, they dilute their energy. They spread their attention so thin, they leave no power behind any one move. But power doesn't come from doing everything. It comes from doing the right thing, and only that. This is why the rich value thinking time. They build space into their day to ask better questions, to reflect, to plan. They don't just react to life, they design it. They know that 1 hour of clear thought can save a year of struggle. One insight can replace 100 wasted steps. So pause, step back, ask yourself, what am I doing that doesn't matter? What am I holding on to out of habit or fear? Where am I spending time that isn't producing freedom? Then cut. Ruthlessly. Free yourself from unnecessary complexity. And in that space, think. Think about what you truly want. Think about who you're becoming. Think about the single move that changes everything. Because when you do less but think with clarity, you unlock leverage. And leverage is how the few produce more with less. It's how they receive more without chasing. It's how they build wealth, not with time, but with precision. So let the world keep running. Let them keep grinding. You're building something different now, something smarter, something sustainable. You're not here to work yourself into the ground. You're here to see with such clarity that life has no choice but to align. And in that stillness, you'll realize it was never about doing more. It was about thinking better. Every day you wake up, you're either programming your mind or letting the world do it for you. And the world, it's not built to make you rich. It's built to keep you distracted, reactive, small. That's why the first few moments of your morning are sacred, because they determine whether you step into the day as a creator or a servant to chaos. If you want to attract wealth without strain, it begins with ritual. Not random action, not desperate hustle, but intentional habits that shape your frequency before the world can lower it. The wealthy don't leave their mindset to chance. They build it by design. Every morning, they don't wake up and check the news. They don't scroll through opinions. They program their internal world to receive what they've already decided is theirs. And they do it with a handful of simple, powerful rituals. The first is stillness. Not hours of meditation, not complicated technique, just silence, a few minutes of breathing, of listening, of sitting with yourself before the noise of the day begins. In that silence, your intuition speaks. Your thoughts slow down. You stop reacting and start choosing. This creates mental space, and space is where clarity is born. The second is declaration. Spoken words with force, with certainty. I am wealthy. I am valuable. I am a magnet for abundance. Not because the words are magic, but because they train your subconscious to accept a new identity. And your subconscious doesn't give you what you want. It gives you who you are. Identity is everything. Declare it before the world convinces you to forget it. Then comes visualization, not fantasy, precision. See your goals already completed. See the deal closed, the numbers reached, the life lived. Feel it as if it's now. The subconscious responds to emotion, not logic. And when it feels rich, it behaves like it. That behavior pulls opportunity because the world responds to energy, and nothing radiates power like someone who knows where they're going. Write, not paragraphs. One sentence. Every morning, this is what I create today. Choose your focus. Own your intention. Wealth doesn't need 100 ideas. It needs one done well. Writing it down turns thought into structure, and structure turns thought into form. Lastly, move your body, not to burn calories, but to activate your mind. Movement shakes off stagnation. It wakes up your energy. A few stretches, a walk, something to remind your nervous system that you're alive, capable, ready. Do this before the world gets to you, before the texts, before the emails, before the noise, because once the day begins, the momentum you build in those first few minutes carries everything else. You'll speak differently, decide faster, walk bolder, not because anything has changed out there, but because everything is shifted in here. That's how you become a magnet for money, not through force, through alignment. Ritual is not routine, it's transformation on repeat. Do it daily, and soon you won't have to chase wealth. It will already know where to find you.